Hello, everybody. I took 2 days. I went through a lot of material, watched some key programs as well, too. I'm thinking about releasing publicly great videos. However, there's some propaganda attached. I'm still juggling that. One video is actually 4 hours. It's historically accurate. The dates are right. The players involved are right. But certain key truths are left out of key time frames and key transition in American and Canadian histories that people should know. They should know up front. And there's reasons why a lot of that won't be shared. And that's because of us, me, you, all Canadians for sure, and most of the world. Now, Americans have a whole different history compared to mostly all other groups of people in the world. And that all comes from monopoly of force. Something the elites globally don't like to shine or showcase about this monumental difference between Americans and Canadians. That Americans, longer before even the War of Independence, how they even got there and how they were able to achieve that was nearly almost 150 years prior. They made a key decision. In one of those British colonies, they said, you know what? We're not going to give up our arms. We're not going to do it. And that was the whole idea of rejecting the monopoly of force that all old world crowns and current monarchies in the world participate in. You're born into it as a Canadian. You don't even know. You've given up rights that you're inherently supposed to be born with. What a man, a father is supposed to have from God, what we're born naturally to do and have at our disposal to protect our families, that is something you don't take away from people because it's inherited, it's genetic, it's a natural right that God enshrines all of us. You feel it in your heart. You get that beating race when your loved ones are in trouble. The first reaction is, I must defend. Same with a mother and a child. Now, a lot of the world for thousands of years now, under these monarchical systems, they've perverted the human condition. They've perverted the family unit. America absolutely is the only country in the entire world of all UN states that puts family at the center of society, meaning you don't have a society if you don't have that fundamental family unit. You've got to give that kudos. You've got to bestow those natural rights. They must be enshrined, codified. What does codified mean? It means written in the highest laws of a country. And if you're a federalism like the United States, like Canada, you need to have that division of powers codified as well, too, at the regional level. A central government for all the regions and regional governments to have powers away from the central government so you don't end up in an autocratic regime. And then you put checks and balances. This is America. It's a beautiful thing. An impossible feat, but people did that in the world for the first time after 5,000 years of human governmental systems. The Americans created this with the American Indians. They actually created it with them and that federal system of checks and balances. They got that from the American Indians. They created a system using religion of the Puritans and the Protestants, and that became the Constitution we see today in the United States of America and all 50 state constitutions. This is absolute, huge, and it's all based on the fundamental understanding, equality of the person, and inalienable rights that everyone's born with. We, the people. We need to be accountable. We need to be responsible for said rights because we're born with them. We're going to codify that in the Constitution. We're going to bestow that executive power at the family unit level, starting as the basis of society. And that's what they did on Christian principles. But they did that against everything else that is the world. And you will not get this education, no matter how good videos are. I just went through a very good American one, but yet still it whitewashes over that fundamental truth that 99.9% of the rest of the world doesn't have that pure system the Americans have. They don't absolutely enshrine the family unit as the central agency of society and the basis of government, empowering the government, giving individuals that executive power. No other country in the world truly does that. They're the only ones. So Canada, USA, they are fundamentally different. Canadians, since their inception and even long before it, they never had it. Now, why is this relevant to what I'm about to go into? Donald J. Trump, Canada, the 51st state. Okay, there's a lot of propaganda. There's a lot of throwing Americans under the bus. I'm even watching it on my page, people crapping on Americans. And I don't chase Americans away. I want Americans with us. I would never do that. That's wrong, wrong, wrong. Canadians have no idea about constitutionalism, not in a very good sense of the word at all, or at the individual level understanding like an American does. We will always welcome wholeheartedly Americans into our group and into our page, and they'll never ever be tossed aside. Sure, there's people who have different education levels. There's people who get things wrong, but generally speaking, Americans understand constitutionalism like no Canadian could ever hope to. And I mean, there's some that have come on board, and like myself, but it's one thing to be taught and you learn it and you're getting taught, like myself, by academia, but it's another thing to grow up and be raised in it, and it's central to your childhood development. I could never understand that. Now, being a subject in an autocratic system, I see other things that Americans won't see, and it's a great thing. But we all need to be together on this going forward. Now, I want to hit this because it's very, very important. Truths for Americans and Canadians, this Canada, 51st state. This isn't new. I didn't create it. I don't start this up and say, hey, this is a brand new concept. In fact, absolutely, undeniably, it starts with an east and west provinces of the British North America, long before Canada was ever created. And I'm going to get to the relevance of everything Donald Trump's doing in a minute. But this is for all Americans, all Canadians. A lot of Republicans get this. Democrats don't, because they've been lied to. Absolutely, almost all Canadians, conservative to the liberal spectrum and then some, doesn't matter. Canadians never get this, but this is truth here now. This is absolute, undeniable truth. So, when we look at Republicans' rule of law, constitutional truth, and this whole idea of 51st state, and where it starts with two little regions called Quebec and Ontario. They were known as East and West Canada, the provinces of the British North America, long before Canada was ever even instituted, implemented, or thought of. This was British North America. 13 colonies had folded. They went and they were on a war of independence. They went up to Canada, made challenges there, tried to win those who were loyal to the idea. Yeah, that's true in history. I didn't create it. Quebec and Ontario did. Long before they were actually a country. They were this east and west provinces of British North America under the British Empire. And they too wanted out. Now, why did they want out? Well, French 7-Year War and all this. And guess what happened? Britain betrayed East and West Canada and said, you know what? We fought that French war to expand our empire all over the world, and we need your money. That's what they did to the 13 colonies. They also did it to East and West Canada. They did that too. French Empire's fallen. Now the British Empire wants money. 13 colonies went, we're not going to give you free money, taxation without representation, War of Independence. Now the Canadian 2 provinces were also looking at joining the U.S., 13 colonies. It was there. They wanted to do it, and the British were putting levies on them that were forced upon them. They did not follow the 13 colonies. They did not have arms. They had none. They had already been under monopoly of force. Absolutely all of Little Quebec and Little Ontario, known as the GTA now. It's just a little triangle. And then there's the Montreal to Quebec City. Those are the original 2 East and West Canada. And they had no arms for any of the people, couldn't defend themselves, had to obey their masters. So they couldn't go, even though they wanted to. They wanted to go and become part of what would be the United States. That is real history. That's where it all starts. And why? Because Britain started putting the same levies, the same sanctions, the same trade embargoes as they put against the United States. And they were even kidnapping Canadians to force them to fight their wars. Did the same thing as the Americans. Difference is those British North American subjects took it. Not everybody was with it, but the Quebecois and the Ontarians took it. That's a fact in real history. Unlike America, who always maintained their arms, maintained their militias, fought their own fights, and then in turn were able to fight for the War of Independence. Not so for Quebec and Ontario, who still wanted to and were in negotiations, at least trying with Britain. No different than the 13 colonies have been trying for 7 years as well too, and wanted to get something set up, but they couldn't. None of them could. But Canada took it. What would be Canada took it. Ontario and Quebec took it. This is at the same time as America's inception and all the way through. There would be times the Brits would take all trade away. Here's a simple question for all Canadians, and Americans maybe will get this too, that, okay, Canadians have this British monarch. We all just watched King Charles come, Mr. Savior, great man, reads out Parliament's throne speech, tells you how all it's going to be, just like the throne speech for the United Kingdom. Same world global strategy, WEF, the 9 kingdoms, all of it, just like the European Union. So here's a question for all Canadians, all Americans. And then you tell me, it's Donald J. Trump right, with 50% tariffs proposed for EU, which are now being levied again. June 4th, 50% steel and aluminum, which is going to wreck Canada, like I told everybody it would. And Trump has a stay, so it's not for sure yet. We need that Supreme Court, but all Americans, all Canadians. So here's Canada with this UK monarch. How does Canada rank with UK as a trading partner? Are we in the top 3? No. Who's our number 1? Oh yeah, USA. Who buys the most from us? Oh yeah, USA. USA's been the best trading partner. Hands down, nobody else. Okay, so UK must be like number 2, right? Oh no, that's China. And then we go on and on and on and on, right? So for UK, right, it has trading partners too. Who's number 1? Okay, USA. Number 2, China, yeah. And all of a sudden, bing, bang, boom, you go through 10 more countries. Still no Canada. You get to the point where all of a sudden there's Hong Kong, Singapore, and Canada. Yeah, that's where Canada ranks amongst trade. UK's 13th best trading partner after every other economies that are much, much smaller than Canada's, and economies that don't hold Charles as their Lord and Savior. Economies that don't have the monarch Charles as their head of state. So what does that tell you? I know what it tells Americans, but Canadians, what does that tell you? What does that tell you? Your economic trade is nothing with the UK. And even its ranking of 13th, what is the trade relationship? It's got to be really great for resources and all these other things, right? No, it isn't. In fact, it's all on services. UK gives you great financial services because apparently your banks and your economics are not good enough in Canada. Right? Huh? Yeah, you got to turn that over to UK. UK gets from you, right, to balance the old trade deficit, right? They give you all these great services running your financial system, and you give them gold, diamonds, precious metals, all the most beautiful of things, right? And they're like your 13th best trading partner, not even effectual. You go tits up tomorrow if you relied on old Charlie Boy or Keir Starmer to somehow bail Canada out. We'd be lower than a third world country, Canada. We'd be lower. If tomorrow USA and China walked away, Canada would be utter poverty right across the board. We'd be decimated. Most people wouldn't survive the first winter. How would we even keep the power and lights on, right? We'd be begging USA, help me, help me, help me, right? So why is this, right? And again, we look at history, because UK was the one who always cut us out of trade, just like they cut out the United States. The difference is USA went to war against that kind of abuse, kidnapping Americans, forcing them into servitude, using them as cannon fodder in their wars. Americans said, "Nuh-uh, we're going to fight you." It wasn't just one or two wars. There was three. There was three after the War of Independence. Same with Spain. They destroyed Spain. Same with France. They utterly decimated France too. Many wars. I've talked about this lots before. Who killed most of the American Indians, North American Indians? Who killed most of them? All the colonial powers long before America was ever a country. In fact, America's death rate with the American Indians is the lowest out of everybody. They beat Canada hands down. Canada, the country. You just look at residential schools genocide, then you look at Indian wars. For all Canadians and Americans, when you hear Charles get up on a pulpit, King Charles, for the throne speech, Americans, Canadians, especially Americans, when he says unceded land, you don't know what that is. You don't have any. And like I said, there's a lot of propaganda against Americans, and it's awful. It's awful. It's a perversion of your history. That's to control more of you, and it's a fear of you. But I'll tell you, absolutely, when you hear the words unceded land out of a monarch's mouth or any of these Canadian politicians, they say, "Oh, we're hailing this unceded land for these specific peoples." Do you know what that's code for? And it's not even code. That means we've taken this land. These people have not made any treaties with us. In fact, they said, "No, get off my property, get out of my home." And we just bowled our way through, and if they try to stop us, we shoot them dead, we arrest them, or they disappear, we murder them. It's called Indian Wars. That's what Indian Wars are. Americans had Indian Wars. They haven't had an Indian war over unceded land since 1920. Now, Charles got up there and said, "This is great. It's wonderful. This is unceded land. I'm here today sitting my fucking ass on unceded land in an American Indian war with people who are largely unarmed, under monopoly of force, and we won't give them any treaties, we won't settle any claims, no self-government, no self-determination, and we've taken all their land against their will, and we're still ready to kill them at will if they try to push us off. That's called Indian War. Americans don't double speak, don't double talk. They're straight shooters. America hasn't had an Indian War or any unceded lands since 1920. The settlements are huge, and there's still claims that need to be settled, not unceded lands. There's claims where the government will roll out lands, and this is very important for all Americans, all Canadians to understand this huge difference. Because the Canadian Crown, the UK head of state, does not want to do this for any of the First Peoples in Canada, unceded, ceded, numbered, named, Métis, or Inuit. Nada. They're not even 0.335% of all of Canada. That's all they have so far. And if you're numbered, like think of the Nazi Germany and numbering Jews, if you're a numbered Indian, you've got it the worst in this country, besides unceded would-be numbered Indians. Still numbered, but unceded lands, no treaties. Mass amounts of BC, mass amounts of Ontario. You won't find this in America. Now, America gives a promise to all the American Indians, and not all have done this. And this is the same as the path of statehood, too, which we get into 51st state here. I'm being honest, everybody. All Americans, all Canadians. Groundbreaking truth here. Lots of knowledge. So, when Americans have their lands, and the government's got holdings of lands, and then you have natives who don't have settlements, they need to constitute a constitution just like all the states of the Union had to, because there's two people in America. There's the Indian citizen, and then there's the American citizen. You want statehood, you want your boundaries defined, there's a process to go through. The American Indians have to go through that process too. Many are. This has been going on since 1934. Not new. Not new. They've been doing this since 1934. Absolutely. Many have. You see it all out west. Major reserves that you can see from outer space. You can't see any Canadian reserves. Even those Métis settlements in Alberta. Overnumbered lands, which is wrong. But at least somebody got something. You still can't even see those comparatively to what you see of the American reserve system that has been settled out and completed just like any of the states of the Union. In fact, there's massive lands. Massive compared to Canada. 20 times more, upwards, depending on reserve and which, and I hate to say this, for American citizens and American Indian citizens, Canada has subdivided the First People so badly in so many narratives. It's all wrong. But especially for those numbered, sometimes it gets up to 500 times less land or even none at all, with no ability to constitute anything and get started. So they don't set up any system that humanizes the First Peoples, which are all the American Indian citizens who get their own nations within a nation. Now, just like states of the Union who've taken upwards of 75 years, American Indians are still on that path, still working at it all the time, and we see it over and over. Now, there's major works that need to be done in those who fought against the United States for Canada and the British, War of 1812, and then some all the way up to 48, fought against the Americans, and you know what? They lost their lands, but they could get it back with the settlement and going through codification, just like statehood of a union. And a lot of them may get there, but that path is easily, readily available for any American Indian or any bands to pursue, and it's always happening at the same rate as the history of the states of the Union. Some take longer. Some take 75 years. That's a fact. So we wait and see, and it keeps going. At least it can be done. None of this is possible in Canada. Not as it is. There are no constitutions at the provincial level anywhere in Canada, let alone some kind of path for any of the First Peoples. They're still under the same old Indian Act, long since retired and forgotten from America, completely washed away in America, more than 120 years ago now. Your residential schools have been gone for 105 years. Canada still runs day homes, for fuck's sakes. It's that crazy here. Just got rid of stuff upwards of 2-3 years ago. They were still running this stuff up north. It's that sick. Canada is massively behind the United States, and in some respects, more than 150 years behind the United States of America. Made transitions to become this nation, said they were going to do all these things, never did. More double cross, double speak, double talk. Absolutely at the destruction of the First Peoples in Canada. In Canada, First Peoples get a crown. The Wampum Belt is another big lie. Wampum Belt USA proves the truth of how Wampum Belt is supposed to be. American Indian citizens, American citizens, boat in the canoe together, going forward. That's how America's going. Chiefs are subject in the United States to their Indian reservation people because they codified. Or you get no funding. You don't get all the perks of being a nation. Those who do get, those who don't. And those who are codified, it's we, the Indian people, citizens in those reservations. 155 of them in the United States. Doing tremendously better than anything you can find in Canada. There's no other example of anyone doing remotely as good. Just like it happens to be American citizens compared to Canadian subjects. You can take the GDP of Canada against the lowest of the low states, and all of those Americans per person per capita against Canadians are kicking your ass. Living better, doing better, everything's better on all levels. It's terrible when you do the average. Everything we know is a lie. There's so much propaganda against the United States, even in America. I think this is largely, again, mostly Democrat narratives from academics who aren't going to trifle with the European Union, the 9 kingdoms. Maybe they've been paid out. I don't know. To me, it looks like it, because while these things are historically accurate, these timelines are accurate, they don't fill in the truth, especially the whole monopoly of force, why Americans did what they did at certain key times, why they were forced to, why Canada went the way it did, why America didn't. They don't want you to know these narratives. They don't want you to know that the family unit enshrined by America is the only country in the whole world that maintains that today. No other nation does. America is the only pure one. That's for the American Indian citizen and the American citizen. You won't find that anywhere in Canada. Canada's all a lie. So now we get to tariffs. So Canada could never trade with Europe, any of those nations, just like USA struggled. USA went to war. Canada sat there on their hands. The reason why we trade so much with the United States is because they're the only ones who would. They were the only ones who didn't exploit us, who didn't cheat us, didn't rip us off, and of course that's how we developed. No other reason. And this is your own fucking monarch, Charles, and all his family history, and all the histories of all of them right to the French. All of them took a round out of the colonies of Canada, whether they were French, English, or then combined when Quebec became British North America, Quebec, after the 7-Year War, and they went forward, and UK was screwing us the whole time. Ontario and Quebec wanted to separate, go to the States. They wanted to join those 13. They were the first, by the way. Then it was the Atlantic regions. At one point, it was Newfoundland. Yes, the territories as well, too. They tried to have a rebellion. That was there in the provisional governments. Saskatchewan, Alberta. And why? Because of the Indian overlap. It was through the Jay Treaty. That's right, USA's Jay Treaty. Canadians used to know of this. They lost it in the 50s. Not America. They never threw it away. They never, ever threw the First Peoples under the bus, but Canadians have all but forgotten. They don't even know any of these truths. They don't know about the trade. They don't know how UK fucked them. That's why all the provinces trade with USA, because USA was the only one who gave a shit about us and didn't exploit us. Our own crown. Not that they all didn't. They all did. But USA had to fight all those. And Canada got the rich reward. And USA said, we know what it's like to be abused like that. Come on, Canada. Well, time has come and gone. And now USA is saying, you know what? We've done all this for you. We've carried you along. Our federal debt's up to here. We can't carry you anymore, Canada. All of these countries have fucked you. They have raped your ass. In clear history, long before you were a country, we're your big brother. We're older than you. We're that older brother where dad came home drunk and the older brother who took the licking for the little brother. That's what USA is to Canada. And anyone not telling you that truth, I'm sorry, but, you know, Canadians probably have forgotten because we're the little brother. You were too young to remember. You might have some flashes. Somewhere in the pit of you, you kind of know this is true, but you're still elbows up. You don't want to admit it, but that's the truth of it. And so here we are as USA, and they're facing this reality today. And Trump's hammering us, keeps turning the dial, because really, honestly, we're USA's number one trading partner back and forth because we're the little brother. That's a fact, but it really affects Canada. USA is out there global. They can replace Canada. It does hurt them. The media is right about that. Does it hurt USA? Yeah, there's a 4% hurt level there. But Canada, it's really going to hurt. But USA's like this. You know what? You forgot what Big Brother's done for you, they've been doing. And Big Brother's getting older now. Big Brother's got this debt. We need to pay it down. We need you to man up now. You're not a little kid anymore, and you can work too. Now, we want you with us because we're brothers, right? You say we're brothers, but then when it comes to merging as a 51st state, being real brothers, like, we're real brothers, blood brothers now. You tell us to go get fucked. You're going to compete against us. So we're not brothers. Okay, but I did all these brotherly things for you. Okay, you were just a young guy. You don't remember the licking you got from your own father, who was a sick son of a bitch, going out drunk, come home kicking the shit out of you. You don't remember, but I took the beatings from you. So you know what? We're going to let them beat the shit out of you again. In fact, we're going to let all the colonials. You want to replace us? Show us, because we never could do it. So we want you to show us. You show us how you're going to enter the European Union, all those 9 kingdoms. You're going to show us how UK is going to be your big daddy. Big daddy is going to put it right in your ass first chance to get after knuckling you, like he always has. Because that's all he knows. He's a sick son of a bitch. He's never going to change. And you're going to find out the hard way the second you go back there. Oh, no, you're right. He beat the shit out of me. He tried to put it in me. And he come back all sore coming home. And same with the EU. That's what's going to happen. And if you think the Asian world, think again. If it was possible, Europe, UK, the rest of them, France, they would have already done all that. But they're just exploiting the cheap labor, making the rich rich, the elite more powerful, filling the crown's need. It's always been there. The best shot we're ever going to get that we've ever had is the United States of America, and they can't carry this system anymore. They can't carry a little brother. He's outgrown his diapers, and it's time for a wake-up call. Now, you can choose to join the U.S. The offer will always be there. America knows, but maybe you need to learn a lesson like Texas learned it the hard way. And I know a lot of folks are mad at me. I'm going to tell you something about these 50% steel and aluminum tariffs. I know very well. Been in construction, big construction my whole life. All of our steel, yeah, sure, Canada can develop that, but that's after massive production that we get help and access to with U.S. markets to process craft, and we get a lot of finished products back through the USA. And of course, we sell a whole bunch of levels of product there. You cut all that back, that means you cut our production down, loss of jobs, loss of a viable system. We won't even be able to function properly on our own, which means it'd be cheaper just to quit our industry and import American steel, aluminum and steel, than make our own. That's the truth here. That's how it's going to get. And I know Canadians don't know this, but that's the reality. The pain that we're going to go through is Canada, the bullshit country, for Charles. You're doing it for Charles, your federal and provincial crowns, who really only get rich off of sucking you dry, whereas the American system has checks and balances, gives people the power, the executive power, at the family level, literally at the societal building block level, at the smallest hamlet and village. You've already started as a State of the Union, something Canada's never known, doesn't have. We don't even enshrine the family unit. You as a Canadian would be more likely to put your kid through a MAID program if the government told you to. You would sell your kid down. And if you don't believe it, just look at the history of Indian residential school genocide. Look at the history of what Canadians have allowed to happen. Way worse than anything not even remotely possible in the United States. It's all happened right through here in Canada, and it still happens. Look at COVID-19. Yo, mask on, yeah, sure. If they told you send your kids to some fucking pervert's fucking mansion, right, you would. Like, I don't mean everybody, but I know for friends and followers know what I mean. I'll put it to you this way. 92 percentile of the Canadian population would comply, even if it meant you'll never see your kids again. Oh, well, I'll believe what the government told me. There's a level of ignorance and narcissism, and it comes through institutionalization. And for Canadians who still don't see it, we are not functionable as a country. And if USA cuts us out of all trade, we're tits up. And there is no savior coming to get us. You could have a savior. It could be China. But you better get ready to roll into pure communism, as all constitutional monarchies before you have. If you ever want to know the history of that, just go to the United Nations Security Council and you can read just the last 85 years of history. Please, everybody, go read that. Go look at it. That's the truth. If you think you're going to have this miraculous independence or other narratives you think, or we're going to make a republic, we know how to do it, but you don't know the first thing about constitutionalism, you're sadly mistaken. Last point I want to make here is I had contact from Jim Scherer. Lots going on in the nuclear world too. I'm very busy, folks. I'm working today too. I'm very tired, and it's starting to show in my work, and I got to tighten up a little bit. But I want to make this point. I got big message in nuclear, what's going on in Canada, US, and global. And of course, World Constitution Day is coming very quickly in August, and then it's World Nuclear Day. So I got all the news on both fronts. But the big one I want to do, Jim is a great guy, Pulitzer Prize winner in economics in the 80s. Huge guy in the United States academia, proven theorist, practical, very talented guy. He does so many great things. He runs constitutionalism too, and nuclear expertise. But what he's really got is World Constitution Day. And what Jim's, I hope, going to allow me, I'm pretty sure he gives me a lot of free reign. I am very blessed in this life. And this American will give me my own slot. And I'm asking him that this year I present the evil of Quebec, the evil of Alberta, in both governmental systems, all their political party systems, at the provincial level, the both separatist groups, and absolutely, at least on the Quebec side, Bloc Québécois, that's Yves Blanchette. So yes, Francois Legault, Daniel Smith, Yves Blanchette, because of what he does federally. But this whole idea of what they want to do for some kind of sovereignty or autonomy without addressing codified constitutions, meaning regional constitutions, just like the 50 state constitutions. In the federalism division of powers, they don't want to do it. None of them. None of the separatists want it. None of the 51st staters regionally want it either. And this is a problem, right? This is a huge problem. And I want to showcase that on the world stage. I'm asking Jim to be allowed to do that and present that. It is a celebratory. We're going to see that celebration across the states and other countries of the world. You're going to get to see a whole bunch of countries. 3 years ago, I had my slot and I got it. But this time, I want to showcase, and yes, it's negative, and yes, I'm pulling Canada's pants down. Yes, I'm pulling the province's pants down. Specifically, I'm going to embarrass Francois Legault, Danielle Smith, and these secessionists. Because enough's enough. America needs to know, the world needs to know what these people are really doing, what they should be doing, but they're not doing. People need to know. The whole world has to be made aware. And I think Americans need to know at a high level, where then both Democrats and Republicans go, whoa, those people are sick. They're sick. They're really, really sick. They need to do this. This isn't right. And I've found that when you showcase that to Democrats and Republicans, right away, their arms in the air like, wow, no, I didn't know that. I thought they were like us. Wow, are you kidding me? They don't even have that kind of infrastructure in, no system, and they're going to try and do this without any of that? Are you crazy? No, and every American knows this. I just want to showcase it on a professional stage for the whole world and all of academia, and that way, that professional video, which will be saved, then places like the National Constitution Center, pretty much every major academic university from Harvard, Yale, Princeton onward will look at that and see that, and then it's going to be a red flag. And then I think people who are sending letters to Congress turn around and say, listen, you straighten out, you guys have no constitutions. What do you take us for here? You think we're dumb? Here's the history of what we've seen since World War II, and Americans have seen it, and they've logged it. That when you don't have those things in place, you're either a military dictatorship or you're a full-on commie. Those are the only two realities of people who run forward in these narratives saying, we're going to do this, but you don't even have a constitution or a planned attack on it when it's already outlined in the Canadian Constitution. Now, I had Dan Skeeman put a comment and said, well, but it's under Crown. It's like, it's not the point under Crown or not. Yes, powers of Lieutenant Governor, the Governor General override, the federal system, that's all going to remain. We couldn't take that away even if we wanted to, Dan. What we're talking about is Section 92 all the way to upwards, depending on the province, 143. Huge amounts. Just like the states, that's hundreds and hundreds of pages of constituted systems that need to be made with checks and balances. There's nothing Crown about that. We can do that if the Crown is willing to do it. And since they don't want to, that's the whole highlight of it. You can do that. Show America you're worthy. This is for separatists. This is for Danielle Smith, Francois Legault, because they haven't been telling any truths to anybody. And Yves Blanchette is a big ass liar, because he would have showcased that too. They know it. They've read my Constitutional Conventions Act for conventions, how to do conventions. My good friend Richard Albert from Texas, which Jim Scherer and massive other people, Tom Ginsburg, goes on and on. There's literally about, I'd say, good 25 of the top 50 American constitutional experts in the States have seen all this. They know what they should be doing. And I want to showcase all that. I want to highlight that. It will embarrass Canada. It will embarrass Alberta. It will embarrass Quebec. But I think that's what you need, because there's nothing worth doing if you're not going to do it right. And it's a deluded lunatic who thinks somehow they're different than every other nutcase regime in the world, autocratic dictatorship before them, because they all end up that way. You'll never find anyone who ever came out, hey, look at the great democratic system we built for we the people. Didn't happen. Which brings me to the last point, and then I'm going to close this off. I know I hit a lot here. Democracy. Is America a democracy? No. Has America codified massive checks and balances, enshrining democratic institutions, best ones in the world? Hell yeah, run by we the people. Best I have found in the world. Direct democracy means nothing if the people aren't really there or don't have the institutions in place to achieve reality. Meaning, do they even understand what they're voting on or doing? Or are they even able to create those narratives, those questions asked? The answer is no. Americans absolutely do. The power of the people's there, citizen initiative there, the civil society power there. They even have the independent judiciary to back them up. There's no other country in the world that can boast the same. And that's absolutely non-existent in Canada. None of that. You have crown, crown, crown all the way through it, fused entirely, up, down, left, right, does not matter. And this is the fool's folly of every Canadian. It's what Americans should know about your northern neighbors, that they are in that old world order system an absolute number one enemy of America. And I know your governments, left to right, even over the decades and millennia, or not millennia, centuries anyway, that they've been looking at this going, wow, like, come on. And it's been very patient of America, but I think America's a little too naive. And maybe Donald Trump is the first to wake up and say, you know what, it's time to, you know what, call a spade, and Canada's going to have to make a decision. And they're going to have to learn the hard way. And that's where we are, as I said, and that's what's happening. And we're moving into some serious sanctions on the cusps of entering into trade embargoes. If you don't understand this, look at the history of British North America, that east-west Canada, upper-lower Canada, but to east-west Canada, the end of Quebec as a French asset to a British North American asset, and what all transpired there between this Ontario and Quebec before they were as they are now, and all the history, and then of the Atlantic provinces into the territories and then into the Western provinces. I didn't create any of this. It's been here all the way through. Your history's just been held from you. It's been erased. You're getting fed lies and propaganda from the Crown, who institutionalizes you. I only give it to you straight. I tell you what is, not what you want it to be, or what you've been made to believe it to be. I just tell you what is, what was, and where we're going. That's it. That's all I do. If you don't like it, that's great. Go back in your hole. Put your head under the sand. I'm not going to stop you, but it's not going to change. Everything I told you would happen since December 2nd is happening. And it's going to get harder and heavier, and the blow's going to keep coming, and you're going to wobble, and you're going to go, and you're going to be down on your knees. Is that my fault? Can I stop any of that? Would I want to stop any of that? Hell no. I want to be 51st state. I'm done with the Crown. I want the American system, and so should all of you. This is my long video, and I'm sorry, everybody. I have movies to present, but I want to cut them up because it's lies that they're being manipulated to Americans, and I want to present them. They're good, they're American, but I want to showcase things as a subject that Americans need to know that, hey, Americans, this is wrong. What they're telling you is wrong here in this respect. That from a subject's perspective, I want you to know you don't feel bad about this because this isn't exactly correct. They're not 100% on this. I'm going to show you how it was and how it should be told. And here's the evidence. And I'm going to do that, and that's very important. So God bless everybody. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Share. I got to get back to work. Lunch over. Bye now.